Welcome to the News and Views with the award-winning EV Cafe. 30 minutes of me not being in a pool. You rotten lot. Anyway, welcome. We've got expert analysis from the EV Cafe crew. Now then, who we got with us today? Who are the opinions on a stick? We are lucky enough to have Paul Kirby at home. We have Sam Clark in a white-seated car, and we have Sarah in a dark-seated car. Greetings, one and all. You well?
Hello, yes indeed.
Yes, very well, thank you.
So, Sam, where are you? You on your way to work somewhere?
I'm on the way to Ivor, GridServe's HQ, yes. Well, I'm not right now. I'm charging at a GridServe charger, obviously.
So how unfortunate. Ivor the engine. Anyway, Sarah.
Yes, similarly, I've been charging this morning up on the Westmoreland network, which is in the Gloucester services, and I'm just on my way to my hot desk, but I didn't quite make it in time. Sorry, I'll put up with this.
And Pablo, you've been in Germany this week.
Yes, but just to say, I'm charging at home. But anyway,
everybody's charging.
Yes, I'm just car's charging. But yes, no, I've been in Germany this week, Hanover, and did 30,000 steps. It felt like no time at all. It was bonkers big, bonkers interesting. So much exciting kit coming down the pipeline for the commercial vehicle sector. Not least, so for everything from megawatt charging, big battery trucks, brand new vans, little things, big things, all fast things, slow things. Wonderful, really good. And sustainability, not just in electrification as well. Obviously a lot on hydrogen as well still. But sustainability in terms of HVO, CNG, LNG, other things that can make an immediate difference in the current trucks that are on the market. So that was kind of handy as well.
Yeah, I saw the Iveco hydrogen hybrid, which looked fabulous. Really nice piece of kit. Anyway, let's get on and see what's been happening in clean transport this week, other than what Paul's been up to. Coming up, more than half of UK businesses are struggling to meet their net zero goals. Rapid rises in benefit and kind tax would damage battery electric company car take-up. An EDF trial will explore how solar customers can power their homes using EV batteries. A shared EV charging platform for fleets moves a step closer, and this builds on the story or the webinar that we had on Wednesday, talking about sharing fleet assets. And there are still safety concerns around the silent approach of EVs. Unbelievable story. We'll have more on that in just a minute. But first, we've got Fleet and Mobility Live and Everything Electric coming up. Spaces are selling fast. Both of these knockout events. Paul, tell us a little bit more, my friend.
Well, so Fleet and Mobility Live was an extremely successful event last year. We had a lot of people come, and we are seeing the same sort of lineup again. It's an event where you've got the public sector, fleet managers from across the private sector, and lots of supportive parties. And what we are able to celebrate is the ecosystem for the electric transition, because obviously lots of people are eventing or exhibiting as individuals, but we bring the whole ecosystem together. It's a fantastic opportunity, connecting people, connecting dots, whilst also having a lot of fun along the way. So that one's really good. And then Everything Electric, we have an area there with a few of our partners, Europe Car and AW Energy, Drax, Iveco. But there is still a couple of places there, but only a couple of places there, and I think four places left at Fleet Mobility Live. So get in quick, because these are real good opportunities to connect with the very people that will make decisions on your product.
If you're interested in getting in front of all of those lovely customers with money to spend, send us an email at hello@evcafe.org, and we'll jump right on it, get back to you, and we'll see what we can do to hook you up. Now then, more than half, 54% of UK transport and logistics businesses think they will struggle to meet their net zero goals, with 2/3 feeling under pressure to meet carbon reduction targets. Supply chain business Wincanton surveyed 515 UK transport and logistics decision makers to find out how they are reducing carbon emissions in commercial transportation in light of the impending net zero 2050 2050 deadline. The main struggles that were identified were cost, with 4 in 5 or 80% believing that reducing CO2 emissions in their logistics fleet means an increase in costs. Can do in the short term. And the lack of collaboration was the other big area. 2/3 of the survey respondents agree that collaboration is key to the future success of the logistics industry. However, collaboration needs to be made easier for all involved, as businesses report they're nervous about the difficulty around finding partners to collaborate with and the lack of internal resources to manage collaboration projects. We've got an interesting event next week. We'll be speaking with all of our partners about collaboration and profitable partnerships in a meeting that we have. And because with collaboration comes reduced cost, we think, and more rapid progress. But Sarah, the risk element of this and having control over your business can be enough to make businesses say, oh, I'm not getting involved with them because I'm worried about my intellectual property, my systems, the way things work. Is it a risk worth taking?
I think it is. And whilst you were reading that out, I was wondering if it was partly to do with the costs associated with measuring your carbon footprint and your ESG sort of targets and action plans, because that's how it works. You first.
Oh, well, that was good. And Sam, in terms of your business, collaboration, it's key to making success happen.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the main struggles that Wincanton highlighted is costs and lack of collaboration, and that's nothing new, right? Those things have been around for a decade. You know, exactly the same points were raised when I ran my own logistics company in central London. You know, it is more expensive, but you make savings in other areas. And the lack of collaboration, a lot of that is consolidation, which is what we need to do so that we're not doing so much of moving things around in individual vehicles and more collaborative approach to logistics. That's incredibly difficult to do because people don't like to play necessarily in the same sandpit. But these aren't new. This is news, but it's not new news. You know, these challenges have been there for decades. And people just need to, you know, understand the challenge better and get on with it. And it is, you know, and also it shouldn't be the logistics companies, hauliers, that bear all the brunt of this either. That cost needs to be passed through to the end consumers, and so there's ways and means to mitigate a lot of those challenges, but it is hard.
Yeah, Paul, I see your finger, but I raise you as Sarah.
Sarah, yes, please go back to Sarah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know why it just died. Every time you ask me a question, I get jinxed by the signal gone. I think the point, listening to Sam's, he's covered it. I would add, procurement is beginning to get really hot on what you've done to reduce your ESG footprint. So whilst I call it a spend to save, it's an investment. You have to do it if you want to play in the big sandpit and get the contracts that will ultimately have a payback.
And that can be a big leg up for some of the smaller businesses, Paul, in that if you get to collaborate with a larger organisation, that can be a real stepping stone for you in terms of growth for your business.
Yeah, I think so, and I think, you know, whilst this has been going on for time immemorial, I think as more and more fleets and more companies are beginning to embrace electrification and the challenges thereof, this is new news to them. Because it's their first experience of having to make these big steps, and particularly in the truck world, having to make big steps with big investment. I mean, these trucks are 2-3 times currently the cost of their the vehicles that they're replacing in some cases. And so that is a hard one to get their head around. So there's a big challenge there. The collaboration is really important, and I think for small companies to work with, like a small haulier, to work with the likes of Wincanton or Kuehne Nagel or Eddie Stobart and, you know, all of those kind of guys, there's a learning and we can all do it. But what I'm also seeing is the smaller guys like Welch's, Mansfield, I think we talked about. You know, these are smaller operators. They are beginning to show the way because they are really focused on, you know, delivering stuff. So I think the big guys could collaborate with the small guys in that respect. So and therefore get a leg up with their experience. So I think collaboration can work very much both ways and give people a real opportunity.
Total win-win situation. Good. Right. The government is being warned against hiking benefit in kind tax in the budget. and instead ensure policies are aligned to continue the take-up of battery electric company cars. Last month, the Prime Minister warned that the government's first budget in October is going to be painful, with people having to accept short-term pain for long-term good. It feels like it's long-term pain for absolutely no good, frankly. Peter Golding, Managing Director at the fleet software specialist Fleet Check, says it would be premature for the Chancellor to assume that the market for fully electric company cars was now mature and more revenue could be clawed back. Has Peter got this right, Sam?
It depends. It very much depends on what happens, right? So again, this isn't new news. We've got all sorts of grant-funded opportunities that have happened and subsidised electric infrastructure and vehicles for many, many, many years, including concessions on congestion charge in London and all those sort of things. And what happens is you taper it. You taper down the incentives until it becomes parity. If they turn a light switch off, yes, it's going to cause an awful lot of damage. So it does need to be, as all of these things, the incentives need to be tapered, and then it will work, because economics has proven that to be the case in the past. I'm also slightly wary of on a wider topic. I learned the other day that this £20 billion hole that we seem to have, half of it, or nearly half of it, is Labour's doing. So it's there will come a point where they can't keep blaming the previous establishment for the costs that need to be recovered, or cost savings in certain places for spending in others. So on a more macro level, I'm also cognizant of that.
Unless we forget that there's a huge subsidy for oil companies, and that has to be inconsistent with 2050 goals, Sarah. The politics of our area of business, of automotive, is enormous, and the power of big oil, the power of energy companies. We're seeing huge profits from energy companies. I saw this morning an article which said that France is seeing a 15% reduction in their energy costs, and the UK seeing a 10% rise in theirs, all apparently due to the same global energy market moves. It makes no sense.
Well, it kind of does. And a long time ago, we decided not to go so nuts on nuclear, and actually did quite the opposite and decommissioned most of our nuclear. And we import a lot from France, so that's why they seem to be doing rather well, I should think. But that's by the by. This whole sort of shifting goalpost thing, as it's broadcast in the press, isn't strictly true. I'm actually with Sam on this one. It was a long time ago that these sort of tapered benefits were celebrated, but I don't think it's going to put people off. I mean, it's still miles better than standard tax on vehicles, and you've probably lost me completely, because that's what happens. Oh no, good, I'm still there. Excellent. Every time I answer a question, I get binned. But no, I'm not put off by it. There are still people talking about the even at yesterday's team meeting, which is an executive team meeting with the P11D that you have to submit if you do a tax return to show what benefits you get. It's still a really small proportion compared to what I would be paying if I was still in my diesel.
And I guess, Paul, the counter to all of this is that we need to be investing in emerging markets and markets that need that support. One of those is commercial vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm all for tapering the one, as long as we kind of take that money and invest it in where it is needed. One of the great examples of this is, of course, Road Fund Licence, or VED as it is often called, coming back next year onto electric vehicles. So immediately every electric vehicle on the road will be now taxed, and whereas they're not currently today. And for a van, that's £335 for every vehicle, whereas in the car world it's a nuanced increase. And I as I was talking to Ozev yesterday, saying we need a nuanced approach for vans, we need a plan dedicated for vans, and money that we can recover in one place, because let's face it, we've all benefited from the benefit in kind incentive to move to electric. Those of us that have moved to electric, and it has driven the market. There is a risk of removing it, but we do need that money to do good in a sector which is not working at the moment, and taking away the exemption for the London congestion charge on both cars and vans in an unnuanced sledgehammer kind of way is definitely the way that will reverse the market. So there would be significant impact. So getting that balance right of when to incentivize and when to remove and when to taper is really important. So we do need to be involved, and we do need to be warning government to get this right. Peter's exactly right.
Thank you. Good. Okay, a new trial looking into how bi-directional charging technology can be optimized to allow customers with solar panels to use the spare capacity in their electric vehicle batteries to power their homes and earn extra cash has been launched by EDF. Trialists will utilize EDF's existing smart export guarantee tariff and use Indra Renewables bi-directional chargers to integrate their EV battery and solar panels, enabling them to sell any surplus power from their car batteries to the grid at the best times, potentially earning drivers an average of £650 a year compared to a smart charging baseline based on research carried out by EDF. Now, this bidirectional charging thing, my simple understanding was that there were very few vehicles that had the capacity to be able to do this. This story doesn't narrate that at all. Am I right? This depends on which vehicle you have.
There's more and more on the market now, of course, that can. And you've drifted me off into a memory there from Kaluza 5 years ago that were trialing this when the bidirectional chargers were £22,000 a piece. So I know the Indra one is much more price favourable, but you're right, it's both things. It's the charger, the fact that you have solar or not. And I think EDF is sort of building on previous trials that show that sort of behavioural incentive is hugely powerful for taking off demand locally.
Yeah, okay.
There's quite a lot to do here, and I think the vehicle, first of all, needs to be bidirectional. Second of all, we need codes from the national grid. I think those actually sit in the vehicle or sit in the software between. So 3TI with their PPO3 are doing trials with vehicle to grid. So in other words, you can sort of drop their PPO3 into your business, plug all your vehicles in the morning, and at some point when the grid needs energy, it can take the energy from the vehicles, send it back. You just tell the car tell the software how much energy you need to have when you leave. This is a business opportunity, and these are the things that we need to be thinking about. I was talking to Logistics UK yesterday, and waxing eloquent around vehicle to grid, because it is really important. It's an opportunity for businesses to mitigate the costs that Wincanton called out. And if Wincanton and others and all of those kind of guys get together, 600 kilowatt hours of battery sitting for a period of time, may be able to send, we know from the RCVs for Westminster Council, the refuse collection vehicles, they have 7 megawatts sitting idle for something like 14 hours that they could send back to the grid at any point because it's connected. And it's all energy that was generated from a energy recapturing next door. So, I mean, yes, it's a big opportunity, and I think businesses will grasp this, and hopefully it will mitigate the costs.
And Sam, we should have this technology just as a standard, shouldn't we? But we don't.
Yeah, the technology is absolutely brilliant, and we must also understand that there's the various different types of connectors. So we've got the CHAdeMO connectors and the CCS connectors, and typically, historically, by vehicle to grid has only worked with CHAdeMO connectors on Nissan Leafs, as one has just pulled up alongside me, in fact, and ENV 200 vans as well. But just one thing, just to counterpoint Paul's point ever so slightly, the energy is there. Yes, he's not wrong, but similarly, the infrastructure is incredibly expensive. And there's a huge amount of work that has to go into that. So there's a significant capital outlay that a board's going to have to sign off, and a very long-term return on investment before that energy that's sat there, which sounds very simple, doesn't it? But it isn't, because when you start to put the business model around it, it's a lot more challenging. And probably is another area where the government could potentially help subsidise to encourage and try and reduce some of that capital expenditure on the front end, to try and encourage more people to do this, whether it be on their driveway at home or in a depot environment. It's all a no-brainer in terms of technology, but it's a very expensive and complex thing to put together. And so that upfront cost is probably one of the biggest challenges at the moment.
Thank you, guys. Right,
well, it's good to see the 3TI, or the investment in vehicle to grid trials. I mean, some of it's gone to 3TI, other people are playing. So I think the learning that will come out of that hopefully will help drive the cost down, to Sam's point.
It's that time. It's shout out time. Thank you for reminding me, Paul. First in through the doors, although this is only due to the things that I have on my screen. There may have been others, and if there are, I do apologise. Good grief, right. First one in, Scott Eady. Friday, you're right. Thank you kindly. 9:36, good man. Daryl Sharp. I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. Evie Bino, what up? Ross Morgan, 2 minutes to go. Hello, EV humans. Oh, hello, Russ. Nice to see you. Carl Elliott, morning all. He's here. It's Peter Heath.
Peter Heath.
Nice tea. He's got nice tea. David Cornish. Hello, David. Ashley Bannister. Old Mr. Two Mugs. Rachel Lewis. Hello, Rachel from Compleo. Hopefully you'll be joining us soon at Fleet Mobility Live. Michelle Breffett from Women Drive Electric. Hello, Dean Mahoney. Greetings. Shane Reese, thanks for being here. It's a low carbon day for Chargy today. Some interesting stats coming. Don't forget to send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. We'll give them a shout out. Who else we got? We got EV Bino. Toby Hiles. Hello, Toby. You want a mug on Wednesday? Do get in touch if you haven't already. Ibrahim Halidu. Well, hello from Ghana. Greetings, Ghana, and thank you for joining us. What time is it there? Do tell us. Ben McDonald, Lloyd Allen, Bristol. Hello, geezer. Ron Godfrey. Hello. Andrew Clark, Darren Anvona. He's late again, but do you know what? We don't care because we love you. Who else we got? We've got Dev, the legend, DEV Chakravarti. Oh, yes. We got Brian Campbell, Michael Barton, also from Bristol. Who else is there? Jim Blair. Hello, Jim. Nice to see you from Arnold Clark. Do you know what? Rupesh Alagupandian. Now that is absolutely brilliant. You have the longest name of the day. And if we had any mugs left, you'd win one. But we don't, so you don't. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Yes.
John.
And I have met Eco Energetica.
Yeah, Eco Energetica are awesome. They're behind the scenes on loads of different charge point operators that we probably don't even realise. It's 9:21 in Ghana, not as dramatic as you might have thought.
No way.
Well, it's
straight down, isn't it?
Yeah, straight down, isn't it? And in the finance world, we quite like those cities because it doesn't make much difference for latency with payments. So all about.
That's why South Africa is quite popular in terms of working with the UK.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we want to see more of Ghana. I think this is the thing. If you're all up and awake and all is working well in the world, why haven't we got all of Ghana tuning in? Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Get Ghana. An online platform that allows fleets to share their electric vehicle charging facilities with other businesses is being planned by the Association of Fleet Professionals. AFP Chair Paul Hollick said, to kick things off, we're looking to provide an online matchmaking service that will link fleets that have spare charging capacity at their premises with others who need charging in those areas. Once we've created an introduction, those businesses will make their own commercial arrangements. The next step will be to commission an online platform that will enable a more structured approach. Fleets that have charging facilities to spare will register, and those that need charging will be able to search and book. It should also set prices and payment terms. I'm massively excited about this, Sarah. This is what we were talking about on Wednesday at the webinar. Sharing facilities has to be the way forward.
Well, if you've got a very predictable fleet and you're looking to, we sort of talked about, we did your quiz, which I thought was so much fun, by the way. Watch it back if you don't get a chance to tune in on Wednesday. It's about the fact that once you've got it installed, once you've got it through stakeholder engagement, once you're ready to roll, you may have downtime on those charges where you could be maximizing your revenue opportunity by sharing. And what the AFP are doing so well here, I think, is taking out the guesswork and the risk by putting a model forward, which has been tested. This isn't the first lot to go. And that whole price point thing is so critical. But if it's private fleet sharing private fleet, it works much better than the sort of stories we've heard of public using private fleet chargers. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm watching with wide eyes, and well done again to Paul Hollick and co. I know Lorna McAteer has been very influential in this, and I can't remember what software they're using to make that happen. I shall jog my own memory at some point.
Sam, how easy is that to do, to set up a platform and to get stuff shared like that?
I have no words to explain how difficult it is, as we are currently building one as we speak. In particular, with continuity with other parties and collaborating in a shared use location has even more complexity added to it. But if they can do it, then brilliant. There are certain benefits in doing it in a sort of closed loop as opposed to in a public infrastructure arena that we're looking at. So there are certain simplicities that can be applied to it. But yeah, I mean, it's a fact. Actually, John, all of the news I've heard so far today, none of it is new news. It's just development of old news. And I think that's a positive, right? Because all of this stuff has been talked about and been developed for many, 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 many years, but we're starting to see it being applied a little bit further into the real world. And I guess that's pretty encouraging, because people are starting to see the things that matter. And there's all innovation's wonderful, but we've talked about so many ideas over the news over the last 4 or 5 years, and they've just gone, haven't they? They've never heard of them. But there are certain themes that are coming back again and again, and that's really promising. I'm positive.
Absolutely.
John, maybe we should rebrand. Maybe it's not the news anymore. Maybe it's the EV evidence, the evidence show. Maybe we present only things that have happened and that are working. Because, of course, Spiri were on the webinar telling us about how they've been doing it brilliantly for bus depots. And that's one of so many examples.
Yeah, I guess this is news in that on Wednesday we had a conversation, Paul, I am coming to you, we had a conversation about who's going to take charge of making all this sharing happen. And the news is it's the AFP. They have put a stake in the ground that says we're going to do this. And I think that's fabulous. Paul?
Well, the AFP have been involved in it, but it's our friends from Power Pins Private Infrastructure Network Solution. They obviously bid for some money, and they're working with Senex, Oxford County Council, Suffolk, DAF, Leading Fleets. Obviously, the AA were involved, I think, as well. National Grid and a number of Royal Mail, huge networks that have lots and lots of depots, and this makes sense. But we do need to sort out, to Sam's point, the difficulties around entering somebody else's commercial site and the health and safety. And there are companies out there. I think there's a company called Ivata that are help solve that kind of health and safety piece. But then there's the billing piece and all of those bits and pieces. But there is coming together, and good to see there's a little bit of government money in there, recognizing the challenge around charging and beginning to support that. So well done the DFT for writing a check to go and help build that.
Yeah, Jim Blair mentioned Ivata, ivata.co.uk if you are interested in finding out more. Final story is one I can't actually believe is here, and it's not even new news. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, not news. But anyway, almost half, 47% of pedestrians say they're concerned about how quiet electric vehicles are when in transit. The poll from Vents and Automotive Solutions also found that more than a quarter of respondents had recently been taken by surprise by an almost silent approach of a plug-in car. I cannot believe we are still talking about silent electric vehicles, even after EU regulation and all this stuff. Sam, kill this one for us, will you, my friend?
I can't, actually, having read it, John, because there is some logic in here. At speed, there is nothing wrong with an electric vehicle. It has a rolling resistance with tyre noise, and it is just as audible as anything else, period. However, when you travel at slow speeds, and again, going back to my logistics world of running over 100 of electric vans in central London, we had 2 people we hit or struck in 10 years. But they were done at slow speeds. And slow speeds is the concern, because when things are moving even at 5 miles an hour and it's completely silent, it will take someone by surprise. And that's why we need these audible acoustic stuff that they're talking about in the news here. So there needs to be a clear distinction between vehicles that are traveling at, I don't know, let's say 15 miles an hour or more, not a problem. Things below that, or even 10 perhaps. Below that, there still needs to be some acoustic noise, I think, because that's the point. One of the greatest challenges we had was when one of my guys was reverse parking out of a bay that he parallel parked in. So he only moved that far, but if someone was crossing the road while he was doing that, in the first iteration of Kangoo vans, had no beeps, no reverse beeps. And therefore we kept going, oh God, didn't see you do that. So there is some logic in here that we need to make sure that the industry needs to make sure that we've got audible warnings.
Agreed, and that's the EU legislation. That's what's in place, and that's what the vast majority of vehicles have. Paul?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think, and some you guys could perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, but in reverse, I don't think the Tesla noise kicks in.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, it's horrible. It's like a spaceship.
On the earlier ones, it didn't, and because I've almost been reversed into by a couple of Teslas. Just in company car parks, just people reversing out. But the noise is really important, and we had the story last week, didn't we? That animals with horses are hearing or sensing the vehicles, better than us humans. So it is important. I think the European legislation says something like the speed must be audible up to something like
19 miles an hour.
Miles an hour. Is it? Well, I thought it was 18 kilometers.
I thought it was 17
and 12 miles an hour.
No.
But most cars have it up to 18 miles an hour.
Yeah, Ashley Bannister's put in the chat, but EU law states under 19 miles an hour, EVs must make an audible external noise.
Nice.
Okay. Well, yeah. Then
there's
I
some
stand corrected.
There's some chat in the chat here about bikes being dangerous, and indebted to Ben McDonald for making me think about physics. I prefer to be hit by a bicycle than a car. Force equals mass times acceleration. Thank you for that, my friend. With that, we are going to end. If you've got any clean transport PR or news stories you'd like us to cover, please send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from them. This has been an EV Cafe production. Other sustainability news services are available, but this is just funner.
Butter! Sam's not got a
EV
cup.
Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA Webfleet Europe Car Paythrough, Iveco, Zaptec, Drax, Sperry, Stuart Science, Hydrock, All-Star, Schneider Electric and Dynamon. We're the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to zero-emission transport. Enjoy the rest of your day, and whatever you do, wherever it takes you. Until next Friday, bye!
Bye-bye.